All right, so that's it for this week's substantive lecture. Just want to remind you of a couple of things. We have a couple of discussion forums this week. First, in Manhattan, you need to do the NetJets Chapter 5 video case, and then review the overview and questions related to the video on page 151 of the textbook. And then as part of the discussion forum, please answer questions 1 and 3 on page 151 of the textbook. This is in the Manhattan discussion forum. The other discussion forum is in BStrap 450, and again, this is going to be our recurring approach to the discussions from now on. I started this a couple weeks ago, and we'll continue it. There will always be 2 discussions per week, one in Manhattan, which is typically going to be more of a book-specific discussion, and one in BStrap 450 network, which will broaden the discussion out a bit. In this case, I am actually going to be using the book as a starting point. You're going to have to read The Competitive Battle Among Big Box Retailers on page 137 of the text. But in order to do this discussion, it goes way beyond the book. You need to participate in the discussion forum in BStrap 450 network related to that article, but be sure to follow the instructions carefully in the discussion forum. You'll see there are 2 phases to the work you need to do, and it goes well beyond the book. First, there's going to be some internet and research and postings that you need to do in the first half of the discussion. So you have to actually go out and learn a little bit about Walmart, Target, and Carrefour, and understand how their strategies have evolved since the article was written. Basically, I've asked the class as a whole to do some of the legwork, to go out on the internet and take an article that's now almost a year old, because that's the nature of textbooks, and see what's happened. That article kind of focuses on probably up to about early 2010 in terms of the reality of what was going on at Walmart, Target, and Carrefour. I'd like you to be able to go out and find some articles, videos, or other resources, both provide a summary in your discussion of what you found, and then any links that you think would be helpful. And then we all should be looking at those summaries and links so that we get some more background before we participate in the second half of the exercise, which will be during the second half of the week. Both sets of questions are already posted, so you can see what it looks like. But the second half of the week, we're going to be answering a couple of questions that really kind of frame red ocean versus blue ocean issues around those companies. So this is a little bit different from anything we've done before. Again, maybe it starts with the book, but this really is broadening out. And as you'll see, my view with BStrap 450 Network is that it's the place for us to have slightly more creative discussions that kind of extend beyond the book, and particularly where we can spend more time thinking about blue ocean strategy. Next week, we're going to be talking about strategy formulation some more, specifically corporate level strategy. You'll be learning a little bit more about what the agenda looks like in detail next week, but just want to remind you that that's the topic for next week. And I just want to remind you of the assignments that are both outstanding and the assignments you're going to need to do next week. First, this week, in addition to all the reading and other materials which you're already familiar with, don't forget to complete the midterm evaluation, the survey on Manhattan. That's due by February 20th at 10 p.m. And then next week's assignments are as follows. You're going to need to read Chapter 6, pages 156 to 181. You're going to need to view Chapter 6 video case, which is St. James Place Capitol. You'll obviously have to view the posted lecture on Manhattan and participate in the discussion forums, which will go from February 22nd through February 27th. And then next week, our next periodic chapter assignment comes up, and that's the BCG experiential exercise. You're going to use the product portfolio matrix that's laid out on page 180 to 181 of the textbook, and you need to submit your written analysis consistent with that exercise no later than March 2nd at 10 p.m. on Manhattan. So that brings us to the end of another lecture. Looks like we're almost exactly at an hour. as I've promised, I'm going to try to keep these lectures to about an hour. That should mean you have and this week, frankly, there's a more limited amount of video. In fact, other than the lecture, I'm not posting any video. So that leaves a couple hours for you to focus on the discussion forums this week. I would particularly put a lot of effort into your first half of the B-Strap 450 network discussion forum, which I think requires a little bit of internet resource work on your own part, and also requires you to look at what other people have posted and treat whatever they've posted as the equivalent of class discussion. So in previous weeks I've said there'd be an hour of lecture, a half hour of videos, and then an hour and a half committed to discussion forums. This week there's about an hour of lecture. I'm not posting any specialized videos. My blog this week is largely a repeat of the email I've distributed to you. It's more informational than anything else. So that should leave you 2 hours for participation in the discussion forums and the associated work for those discussion forums. And then, of course, that's your 3 hours of class time. Think of any other time you commit to the written assignments, reading, etc., as being your external homework. And again, as I've said before, you typically do about 2 hours or so at a minimum, per hour of classwork. So that gives you at least a framework for thinking about the work you have to do this week. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me via the Manhattan Post Office. As I've said in my posting this week, I am discontinuing the video conferences as a general tool or a standing call, but I will be using them on an ad hoc basis, as you'll see in my notes. But I am always open to having a telephone conference with you. I've done about 5 so far with students who've had questions. I have one scheduled early this week, and I'm glad to do them during business hours when I can schedule them in my calendar at work. So please email me, and we can try to find a time that works for the two of us if you have a question. And I'm glad to talk through things with you. Hope you have a good week, and again, look forward to hearing from you if you do have any questions. Thank you.